You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. I was saying before the show started, I was talking about how the news cycle it continues to go so fast. And I could have certain shows where I pick out 15, 20 stories and just buzz through them, short segments. I have other shows where I want to focus in a lot more on one or two or three stories. Today, we're going to do the full wrap up. I've got several stories to talk about, but I want to start with what to me are the two most important stories. And let's actually spend some time talking about them. The Iran deal and the rape gangs in the UK. These are two stories that, and as I have as like the title of today's post, these are two stories that I think are being botched, obviously by legacy media, but unfortunately, a lot of people in conservative media, I think, are botching it as well, and that's unfortunate because this is what we do. This is how we get the word out. And on one hand, I think that there's a lot of belly aching over this Iran deal. I can sort of understand it because, on first glance, it's pretty bad. Once you start digging into it and understanding the scenarios, seeing what's really happening, it's like, okay, so this is actually, is it ideal that we didn't get regime changed and that the Ayatollah or whoever's controlling his X account is still out there chirping and the IRGC is still in control? No, that part sucks. But as far as what's best for America, what's best for even the world, and yes, even what's best for Israel, this is as good as it's going to get. And there are reasons to believe that we should accept and embrace what the Trump administration is doing. And they're not done yet. It's not like, okay, cool, we got this memorandum of understanding out there, done deal, everything's hunky dory. No, it's crazier than that. And then, of course, the rape gang scandal in England. This is something that the only reason I avoided it at all is because it's one of those truly like as a father of daughters, a man who's had my wife and I have been together for 3 decades, more than 3 decades. I am extraordinarily passionate, and I can get really, really angry. And not that there's anything wrong with getting angry on this show or any show. That you do need emotion, and as long as it's legitimate and real and not manufactured, then you're fine. And I can assure you that the rage that I feel for the perpetrators of these rape gangs in England and just sexual violence anywhere, it's real. It is legitimate. I do get I start spitting. That's why I usually avoid it whenever possible, but we got to talk about it. So let's talk about it today. I've got other stories to talk about too. NATO 3.0, good stuff there. There's some awesome fraud news. It's funny because last week I came on the show, and I actually did it during 2 different shows. It was, one last week, one the week before. And I said, look, the Republican strategy, the winning strategy for the midterms, it's not just the economy, even though it's always the economy, but that's just a part of it. And it's definitely not just, it's the wokeness. That's okay, sort of. It's the border. Well, yes, but we have got to position that properly. It's the crime. It's the whatever. No, the winning strategy is what I call the Nick Shirley strategy. Okay, go after the fraud, expose the fraudsters, work your way up, put time and money and resources towards exposing the fraud, because 9 times out of 10, maybe more than that, but at least 9 times out of 10, it's going to point back to Democrats in office, Democrat appointed bureaucrats, Democrat cronies in business. I mean, out here in California, the homelessness industrial complex is so vast and so ugly and so just, it makes the hospice care fraud and the whole daycare fraud in Minnesota, it dwarfs them. It's so huge. And so if you go after that and you expose, this is what happens, this is what Democrats do, you'll win. And so apparently the White House has been listening to the J.D. Rucker show, obviously, because because they've been going after. I mean, they've been hitting fraud from every angle, and I'm not kidding when I say it started this week. It really did start this week, and that's not just me playing. And of course, obviously, no, I don't have any inside connections, and no, Susie Wiles isn't out there watching, unless she is, in which case, hi, Susie. Great to hear. Great to see you. Call me. Call me. You got my number. She doesn't have my number. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I'm glad because this is, again, to me, it's the winning strategy. Go out there, expose the fraud, follow the fraud back, trace it back to the Democrats, and you will be able to win midterm elections. You'll hold the House, hold the Senate, and you'll make major gains in the state legislatures, governorships, mayorships, city councils, dog catchers, sheriff's offices, district attorneys. It's a winning play because two reasons. Number one, the fraud is out there. It's huge. It's massive. It's much bigger than I think anyone, including me, even has any idea. I mean, it's unfathomable numbers. And then number two, it's almost always Democrats. I'm not saying that Republicans don't engage in fraud. I'm just saying for every Republican lawmaker or bureaucrat that's engaged in this level of fraud, you're going to find 10 or more Democrats. So, and here's the thing. If they expose Republican fraud, awesome. Okay. I don't care. You could be a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a libertarian, a Green Partier, no party affiliation. You could be whatever you want. And if you're engaged in defrauding the American people, you need to be busted. You need to be jailed. And you need to be questioned, and they need to work their way up or work their way down, work their way in both directions, and find the fraudsters. So we'll be talking about that a little bit today. But we're going to start off. With a movie, and I want you to pay attention, if you don't mind. I know you all pay attention, and thank you all for the thumbs up. Let's get those thumbs up going. I want you to pay attention, if you don't mind, to what I consider to be one of the best movies out there. I don't necessarily hold them. I say them because it's two of them. I don't hold them in as high a regard as like a lot of the lists out there. I know that some of the lists actually have like Godfather at number 1 and Godfather 3 or 2 rather at number 3. I think that they're both top 10. I just don't know if they're number 1 or 2 or 3. I don't know if they're, I would probably put Godfather 2, which I preferred, at number 5-ish. I'd have to make the list, but I don't waste my time. But if I were, I'd say it's probably around 5, and Godfather is probably around 10. Great movies, just absolutely stupendous movies. But there's a line in there that I would argue maybe a majority, and probably not my audience. You guys probably get it if you watch the movies. But I would say a majority of Americans get they understand the famous line wrong. And I know this because I read some analyses last night. I was looking, contemplating this, and I was going through. I checked with Claude. I checked on Google. I started reading what people were saying about it, and it seems as if there is a little bit of a misconception. Probably, I don't know, 70, 80% of the analyses I read, even from AI, were getting it a little bit wrong. And here's that particular line.
You look terrible. I want you to eat. I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
Too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I know the volume was low on it, but I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Okay? As one analysis I read last night noted, it's the line that in the 70s and probably in the 80s, probably all the way into the 90s, maybe even into today, everybody has an uncle that's practiced that line and says it every time they have a family get-together. Millions of uncles out there have practiced that line. I know I have. I practiced that line myself. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. But here's the thing. I think that it's misunderstood. Actually, I know it's misunderstood. Again, based on my research. Not by you. I'm not accusing you. Chances are you get it. But for the rest of them, I'm going to explain the line. So we'll start with the first instance of it. In Godfather 1, Michael brings Kay to the wedding, his sister's wedding, and he's telling the story, a little bit of a story about his family. And he said, you know, oh, it was because Johnny Fontaine was singing. She's like, oh my gosh, you guys know Johnny Fontaine, the famous singer? And he's like, yeah, you know, he's my dad's godson. And so he's telling the story about how Johnny Fontaine, in his early days before he was famous, he was stuck in a contract with his band leader, and Don Corleone, Vito Corleone, went to visit him, and he offered him $10,000. Said $10,000 if you let Johnny out of his contract, and the band leader said no. And so the next day he comes back, and he gets the band leader to sign because he brings in, and he brings in, instead of $10,000, he brings in $1,000. And he gets the guy to sign, and Kay asks, how is he able to do that? And he said he made him an offer he couldn't refuse. My father made him an offer he couldn't refuse. He brought in Luca Brasi. It was an interesting story about him I might tell you later. Brought in Luca Brasi, who held a gun to his head, and his father told the band leader, gave him the contract and said, either your signature or your brains are going to be on this piece of paper. Of course, signature came. He got $1,000. So he was offered $10,000 at first, and he ended up with $1,000 to let, and still had to let Johnny Fontaine out. The second instance, which is the famous one, this is the one everybody knows about, also in Godfather 1, is still pertaining to Johnny Fontaine. They all pertain to Johnny Fontaine. Okay, he's just the guy that always gets all the offers, or at least prompts all the offers that nobody's allowed to refuse. Second version of it is Johnny Fontaine wants to get this particular movie role. It's a career builder. It's a movie role that he wants, but the director won't have him because there was a personal clash over a girl. So Tom Hagen, the adopted son, the attorney for the family, he goes to visit the director, and he tells the director, look, we want you to put Johnny Fontaine in this movie. And the director's like, well, what am I going to get out of it? And he says, you know, we know you got some union problems. We can take care of that for you. We also know one of your stars has graduated from like marijuana to heroin. And the director gets all mad. He's like, you tell your boss, blah, blah, blah. Well, he didn't know who the boss was. And then later on, he ends up inviting Tom Hagen over to his house. They have a nice dinner. They have drinks. He's giving him a tour. It's cordial because it's like, you should have told me it was Vito Corleone. So his reputation preceded him. But even with that knowledge, even being given a very, very beneficial offer, an offer that he couldn't refuse, of help you with your unions, we'll fix up, cover up for your star that's now a druggie. Even with all that, the director's like, no way, no chance that Johnny Fontaine is going to be in this movie. And that was what the movie clip that I just played. That was what preceded this incident. So of course the famous portion, the director wakes up the next morning, looks under his sheets, and his beloved $600,000 horse that he bought specifically to stud. He wants to breed more winning horses. His head, of course, is in the bed, and blood everywhere. It was one of the top down that scene is definitely top 10 most iconic of all time. Just insane scene. Version 3. I'm almost there. Stay with me. This all ties back to politics, I promise. We're not talking about entertainment or movies today, but version 3. Michael Corleone. He's in Vegas. He's there to meet Mo Green, and Mo Green owns the casinos. He built Vegas, the man who built Vegas. And Michael's there. He's telling again Johnny Fontaine, who's always popping up when there's offers that need to be made. He's asking Johnny Fontaine to offer to perform at the casinos for the Corleone family, because the Corleones are gonna buy the casinos. And Fredo Corleone, also known better as Chris Cuomo, Fredo Corleone, he's like, I don't know, Mikey, I don't know. Mo didn't say anything about us buying his casino. And then Michael Corleone says, well, we're going to make him an offer he can't refuse. And he gets Johnny to sign the contract saying that he's going to perform there a certain number of times a year. And he asks him to go to his friends in Hollywood and in music and try to get them to sign to do the same thing. They want to turn Vegas into more entertainment and not just gambling, right? So Mo Green shows up. It's cordial at first, but then Michael says, we want to buy you out. Is my credit good enough to buy you out? And Mo Green gets mad, and they go back and forth arguing about stuff. But at the end, Michael says, I'm leaving on a plane to New York tomorrow. think of a number. He doesn't even make an offer. He's saying, you tell me, how much is it going to take? How much money do you want us to pay you to buy you out of your casinos? In all three cases, these were offers that they couldn't refuse. All three cases, they made sense. It was logical. They were getting great benefit out of it. But for whatever reason, personal or otherwise, they didn't accept the offer. Those are the offers. You know, a lot in the analyses I read, it's always like, you know, the offer that you can't refuse is the one of violence. And no. That's the consequence of not accepting the offer. Okay? The offer that you can't refuse is the good offer, the business offer, the nonviolent offer that the Corleone family offers. Okay? That's the offer that you can't refuse. And if you do refuse it, then you get the other side. Then you get the horse's head in your bed. Then, as Mo Green, you know, you die on a massage table with a bullet through your eye. Or you have Luca Brasi there with a gun to your head, threatening, and you end up getting 1/10 of the money that you were originally offered. You're given a good deal that you can't refuse, which sets up the real deal. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If you're an astute student of The Godfather, you'll be like, but you forget. In Godfather 2, young Vito Corleone, at that point played by Robert De Niro, he says the same line. He says, it's actually a variation of the same line. He said something to the effect of, I'm going to make him an offer he don't refuse. It was clumsy, but it worked. And he wasn't making an offer, in this case to Don Fanucci, who was the fake Don in the movie. He goes and he offers Don Fanucci a little bit less money. There was no real offer. You know, it wasn't an offer that he couldn't refuse, and then he ends up killing him. He was going to kill him either way. That was the plan. And you might be like, well, that's not doesn't line up with what you're saying. And my counter argument there is that was inserted. That was not in the books. Okay. Mario Puzo had he put together just a fantastic world. And I'm not trying to rip on Francis Ford Coppola, who happened to make two of the greatest movies of all time out of that work, but the lore, the beauty of the books. You know, it's so cliche to say, oh, the books were better than the movies, you know, but when we're talking about The Godfather, that's not necessarily always the case. A lot of people would definitely prefer the movies, at least the first two, because they were, again, some of the best movies ever made. But in the books, Don Fanucci was not some fake, weak Don. He was actually legit. And nowhere in there does a young Vito Corleone say those words. It was inserted as a callback in the movies only. That's where the difference is. And just on a quick side note, before I get to the point. Quick side note is that people ask, you know, was it the amazing world that Puzo created? Was that what made it? Or was it the incredible direction of Francis Ford Coppola? Was it what really made this? And I would argue that it was neither. Both were great, don't get me wrong. But the thing that really separated it out wasn't just the lore, it wasn't just the great filmmaking, but perhaps most importantly, it was the culture. The culture of real, like, it was very real. It felt real. It felt like this was almost not a documentary, but at least it could have been a very true story. And there were elements of truth in it, but it wasn't based upon real people. But it could have been. And it's so magical. Not in a, you know, oh, wow, you know, like a, what is that movie? The Princess Bride. Not like that magical. Magical in a different way. It was an insight into something that was both ugly and beautiful at the same time. And that's mafia life in the early days. I'm not talking about mafia life today. I'm talking about mafia life way back then. There was, evil as it may have been, there was a certain level of beauty to go along with the rage, to go along with the hatred. Just a side note. What does this all tie together to form? Well, you have to wait till after the break to find out why this is the perfect prelude to discussing the Memorandum of Understanding with the Iran deal. I've worked with Jace Medical for a long time for a lot of reasons, but arguably the most important reason is that their products are the best. There are other companies out there that offer similar products. They are generally more expensive and generally inferior, if that's possible. Now, if you're dealing with one ivermectin versus another, chances are it's going to be the same thing. But there are other types of drugs that where quality does make a difference. And when it comes to other items, such as med kits, such as long-term storage food, which I haven't tried that yet, but everything else I've tried, they do a fantastic job. I've been working with Jace now for many years, and they are a company that I always go back to. I'll admit, I have at least looked into working with other similar companies, and they've always fallen short, whether it's transparency, whether it's the way they treat their customers, and most importantly, whether or not their prices and product quality match Jace, and they just don't. So check them out. Go to jdrucker.com/meds, jdrucker.com/meds, and see what Jace can do for you. So what does it all have to do with anything else? What does The Godfather have to do with Iran? Well, again, in all three true examples, the offer that was made was a great one. It was one where there shouldn't be any belly aching. There shouldn't be any reason to not accept the offer. The band leader would rather have somebody who doesn't want to be there instead of taking $10K. The director wants to use a personal grudge, and when he's offered help with unions, which were big back then in the movie industry, help with a star who's succumbing to heroin addiction, that's a great offer. All you got to do is put a known entity, a good guy, into this movie role. No brainer. And then, of course, with Mo Green, it's like, might as well be name your price. William Shatner coming on and saying, okay, you tell me how much do you want us to pay for your casino? We're not even going to throw out a number first. You say the number. Whatever it is, it's done. These are offers that should not have been refused. And when we look at the Memorandum of Understanding, it's an offer that Iran absolutely positively should not refuse. Not a chance. I mean, it's great. This is more than what they could have reasonably expected. They might talk a big game, but they're not stupid. They are deranged. Okay, they do have a degree of a very high degree of indoctrination and religious zealotry that blinds them to reality, but they're not stupid. Okay, $300 billion. Wow, that's like nobody would have thought that number. If you had asked your average American, average Iranian, average whoever, how much money would be invested by the Gulf states to help rebuild Iran, and be like, oh, I don't know, probably 10 billion, 20 billion, $300 billion. They still retain control as long as they play ball. Strait of Hormuz. I mean, this is a great deal for Iran. But as I noted, and a lot of people are noting this, it's kind of funny. They're not going to take it. I mean, they're going to sign the deal, but they're going to lie because it's in their nature. They're going to try to deceive because it's in their nature. They're going to screw this up. President Trump knows this. Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, they definitely know this. So from their perspective, they have, on one hand, the possibility, we'll say it's a 20% chance. 20% possibility that maybe Iran, the offer's so good that they're like, you know what? Let's take it easy. We'll plot for the next generation, but for now, we do need to rebuild. Our economy's tanked. We got, the people hate us. Our leaders are dead. We're trying to get these other leaders up there. We got this pretend leader out there that's sending out X posts instead of going in public because he's apparently either disfigured or maimed or dead. So we haven't actually seen him since February 28th, since he was bombed and since his dad died. So yeah, I mean, it's a deal that maybe slight chance, 20-30% chance, they might actually re-enter, or I guess for the first time really in 47 years, re-enter society, the world society, the world economy. Not play the terrorist game, not do any of that stuff. Chances are slim, we get it. But we have to make that offer. We have to make them an offer that they can't refuse. And baked into the offer that they can't refuse is a series of snapbacks. There is no, they might use the word permanent, but, saying that this is a permanent peace deal, there's no such thing. We know that. Everybody knows that. They use the word because it's supposed to say that this isn't short term. This is ongoing. It's indefinite is probably the better word. Indefinite until the next flare up in the Middle East happens, because it's the Middle East and flare ups always happen. Let's just hope that it's not all out war again. That's the thought there. But there's snapbacks to everything. Snapbacks to every dollar. Snapbacks to control of the Strait of Hormuz. Snapbacks on sanctions. Every single component is contingent on Iran playing ball. And if Iran at any point does not play ball, then they get the horse's head in their bed. That's where the snapback options kick in. And of course, the biggest snapback option is, as President Trump has said multiple times now, as J.D. Vance has said multiple times now, if they don't play ball, we're going to bomb them worse than we did before. This isn't oh my gosh, this is such a bad deal. Everybody's belly aching. As many in Israel are belly aching, and Democrats are belly aching. They would belly ache no matter what. We know that. But then there's still a lot of Republicans and conservatives out there that are like, oh my gosh, this is such a horrible deal. And here's the part that gets to me, that really bugs me. And this is the part when I say I put in the notes for today's show that it's not just legacy media. We can expect them to botch it because no matter what Trump does, they're going to be against it. But conservative media, honest media, they should be able to look at this and assess it. But many of them, including Eric Erickson, Shapiro, and many even Republicans in government like Ted Cruz, are out there saying, this is a horrible deal. We're giving away too much. Iran is going to break this deal. Yeah, we know. We know that's a very good possibility. But if we continue, if let's say, you know what, we tried, we couldn't come to an agreement, we're going to start bombing again, the world will be against us. If we make this offer that they can't refuse, and we're like, look, we're offering them $300 million, control the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to help them rebuild. We're going to give them sovereignty, autonomy. We're pulling it back, all sanctions. We're giving them everything they want. And they're still going to fund terrorism. They're still going to bomb Israel. They're still going to push Hezbollah to attack. Well, now, world, we gave them the opportunity. And they denied it. We're going back to war with them. Who's coming with us? Now, do I expect anybody to come with us? No. But do I expect the world to respond with, I mean, he did offer quite a bit. Iran, yeah, I mean, they were given the world and they denied it. So I guess, yeah, go ahead. We'll support you, America. Especially in the Middle East where we need those bases. And when I say we need those bases, in the real world, I don't think we need those bases, but we have them, and every administration seems to think we need them. So, look, keep in mind, I'm the guy, I want out of the Middle East altogether, okay? I don't want anything to do with it. You gotta just do your thing. Go jihad each other, go do whatever. Now that we got oil, now drill, baby, drill. It's like, what? I'm not trying to be super selfish here, but, as an America First guy, it's sort of like, what do we need from them anymore? Petrodollar, dead. We can drill our own oil. We can get pipelines with Canada if we ever get that squared away. Alaska, offshore. I mean, that was it. That was the last component, right? And that's not necessary anymore. So for me personally, I would love to be out of there altogether, but I'm not expecting that. That's not realistic. It's not realistic based upon the news. It's not realistic based upon the Bible. It's not realistic based on anything. It's just a personal, yeah, I don't like to be in the Middle East at all. That's my personal take. But with that said, assuming that I don't have the king's magic wand and say, okay, we're now out of the Middle East. Poof. Can't do that. So now I've got to look at this realistically. And realistically, this memorandum of understanding is not nearly as bad as conservative media, many in conservative media, are playing it to be. Again, if it didn't have the snapbacks, I'd be like, holy crap, what are we doing? It feels like, okay, we're going to give you guys $300 billion of U.S. taxpayer funds, and we're going to ask you, please don't attack us. Please don't do the nuclear thing, No, that's not what it is at all. We're releasing their funds. This is their money back to them. That was $24 billion. We are controlling the reins. We're not. This isn't going to be taxpayer dollars. We're controlling the reins, though. We're holding the waivers, the rights to allow them to receive money from Gulf states and anybody else who wants to invest in the rebuilding of Iran. This still has to come through us. Everything has a snapback. Again, is this the deal that I want? And no, I've said many times, I don't agree with regime change 99 times out of 100. This is the one time out of 100 when you have a regime that has always had nuclear ambitions, always lied about those nuclear ambitions, and continuously says that they want death to America. They consider us the great Satan and they want us dead. Yeah, that's kind of a regime that I would be okay with changing. Okay? I don't like that the IRGC is going to be in control. I feel really awful for the Iranian people. And I am concerned about Israel. But as long as they can take care of themselves, I'm not as concerned about what Iran, that has been absolutely decimated and broken. The military has been for the most part demolished. Yes, they can rebuild drones very quickly. Yes, they can. They're already in the process of rebuilding their ballistic missiles stockpiles. Yes, they're probably getting they are not probably. They are getting technology and weaponry from China, possibly from Russia. These are all bad things. But otherwise, I mean, their boats, their planes, their radar, everything's been decimated. That's not going to be something like, okay, cool. There's no snap back to that. That's going to take some time. It won't take much time to build the ballistic missiles. It won't take much time, any time at all, to build the drones. But everything else, the full infrastructure of the military has to be rebuilt, and that's going to take years and a lot of money. So my concern with that is far less. Let's go to President Trump. He was talking about this a little bit today. He said, for number one, and I'm going in reverse order, so this is the most recent post. The United States is committed to peace. We encourage everyone in the Middle East region to maintain their commitment to allowing our negotiations to beautifully unfold. The markets are loving what is happening, with oil prices way down and stocks way up. We expect a complete ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically, he's just reiterating, hey, stop fighting, guys. And that message, they say Lebanon. Lebanon's not a player in this. Lebanon is almost a hostage. They don't want war. They don't want to fight Israel. The government of Lebanon just wants their neighbors to the south to not attack them and to eventually give back their southern territories that Israel has taken. But Hezbollah, on the other hand, they don't care. They're like, yeah, war, we love it. They're the most militant group out there. They're more militant than Iran. They're more militant than Hamas. They are insane. And President Trump's saying, hey, don't attack Israel. Israel, don't attack Hezbollah. And he's saying, look, I'm going to talk to Israel and tell them not to. IRGC, you guys put a leash on Hezbollah and let's just, make peace happen. We got a 20 to 30% chance of it working out. So let's make it work out for as long as it can. But earlier, he did address the $300 billion that legacy media, and yes, many in conservative media, for whatever reason, continue to lie about. And it is a lie. Because at this point, early on, it's sort of like, yeah, the wording was a little bit misunderstood, but J.D. Vance went on tour explaining it's not $300 billion of U.S. taxpayer money. We're not paying them. There is, according to President Trump's Truth Social post, there is no $300 billion payment to Iran by the U.S. That's fake news. All there is for the U.S. is success, lower oil prices, and victory. Check out the stock market. Democrats propaganda at play. President DJT. Now, by no means, please don't take this the wrong way. This isn't me just being a cheerleader for the Trump administration and saying, oh my gosh, hey, you guys, this is perfect. This is the best case scenario. This is exactly what we wanted. This has been the plan the whole time. This is what we were expecting. No, the plan was, hey, let's go in. Israel's going to go in either way. If we don't go in with them, okay, Israel's pulling a Leroy Jenkins. This is what happened. U.S. is like, hey, let's plan this out. We've got intelligence. We can take out all of their stuff all at once, 1 or 2, 3 days max, take out all of their missiles, hit where we know their uranium is most likely, take out all their leadership, and make them crumble. And Israel's like, okay, cool, yeah, let's do that. Are you ready this Friday? and U.S. is like, no. And Israel's like, well, we're going. I mean, that's what happened. That's what the intelligence says happened. And the U.S. looked at it and they contemplated not going in. They're like, well, what happens if Israel goes in and we don't? And they assessed that the medium-range missiles that Iran had could reach Europe, could reach all of our bases in the region. And these aren't exactly the easiest missiles to take out. President Trump said it. Everybody's like, oh, there's no proof that they've got those missiles. And then, of course, they did get one missile off at one point. They said, hey, wow, look at that. Crazy. That missile that they allegedly, according to legacy media and Democrats, they allegedly don't have, that traveled 1,400 kilometers. Crazy stuff. Wonder how that happened. So, U.S. assessment was, if Israel's going to go in, then we have to go in to decimate their ability to counterstrike. That was the calculus there. And the thought was, if we're going to do this, no half measures, take out the Ayatollah. Let's come up with a plan, a brilliant plan, a beautiful plan to basically say, okay, there's not going to be an attack. You can go ahead and go to the second floor of your complex with a bunch of your leaders, and don't worry, we're not going to attack. Just once, they're there. I mean, that's what they did. Killed the Ayatollah, maimed or possibly killed his son, took out like 40 of the leaders of the IRGC and everybody else over a 4 or 5 day period. And that was basically the extent of the short-term plan. Now I was like, okay, who's in charge now? We took you all out. So who's ready to surrender? They just didn't. I mean, that's where the miscalculation came in. By any reasonable nation, any other reasonable nation with that many leaders killed, with that much of their military destroyed, with that many of their people suffering, they would have been like, okay, fine, just what's in it for us? Well, we'll let you guys go, like Syria, we'll let you guys go up to Russia, let Moscow take you in or whatever. You can go hide out in Syria, do whatever you need to do. We won't take out your planes if you go there. Leave the nation and start democratic elections. That was basically the plan. It didn't work out because they're crazy. So, best case scenario was, okay, well, keep hitting them. Just keep hitting them. Keep hitting them. Eventually, they'll succumb. We took out another leader. They just announced another leader. We know where he is. He's gone. I mean, it was almost comical how many of their leaders just kept falling. Almost comical. But it wasn't. It wasn't funny, and they still persisted. So, This deal, this offer that they can't refuse with snapback options that will allow us to go in the likely event, as everybody seems to agree, left, right, doesn't matter. They're all like, oh, yeah, they're going to take the money, but then they're going to go right back to their old ways. Okay, well, that's where the snapback options come back, snap back. Military goes back in, but this time, with the backing of much of the world, not everybody in the world, but at least the regional, the nations in the region where we need the bases in order to fully operate in the Middle East, they'll be like, yeah, go ahead. Clearly, Iran is stupid. Clearly, they don't care about peace. They will not allow peace. Terrorism is more important to them than their own people. War is a way of existence for them. It's not just a way of life. It's not just what they want. That's who they are. We accept that now. Fine, U.S., go take them out. Now, it's still going to get ugly. I'm not saying, I truly hope that Iran just plays ball. I hope that they're like, you know what? This ain't so bad. We just opened up an In-N-Out burger in Tehran, and I don't know about you guys. Man, that's some tasty stuff. Talk about animal fries. Forget about the goats. We got animal fries. Western society ain't so bad. Death sort of to America, but keep the animal fries coming. That's what I would love for that to happen. I'm not naive to think that it will, but hey, Holy Spirit moves. God has plans. You never know. And if they don't, assuming that, the high likelihood that they do betray us, betray themselves, then we're no worse off than we are today. Now, I've got to throw this out there just because it is a factor. Israel's not happy with this. Benjamin Netanyahu's not happy. Members of his cabinet are not happy. To Netanyahu's credit, he's playing it smart. He's not personally going out there and attacking the deal. He's not personally going out there and trash talking President Trump. He knows that if he does, he's seen President Trump's mercurial side. He knows how quickly President Trump can and would turn on him. So he's playing it smart. But a lot of members of his cabinet are not. And J.D. Vance isn't happy.
Saying something to somebody else that he's not saying to me. What I will say, and this does bother me, is that you have seen people within Bibi's cabinet who have come out and attacked the deal and in some ways very personally attacked the President of the United States. And I guess my message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. And he happens to be the head of state of the world's superpower. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world. And the second message I would give to some of those cabinet members, Bibi, to his credit, has not gone down this path, but to some of these cabinet members in Israel who are attacking the President of the United States, the other thing that I would say is that over the last 3 months, 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel is not Donald J. Trump. And anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in. Thank you all.
All I want is some dang respect. I don't remember what show or movie that's from. I just remember that line popped in my head. And it's true. And I want to be crystal clear because I think I might have made it sound, oh, so you're saying that Israel dragged us into war. That's not what I'm saying at all. President Trump made the decision. It was ultimately President Trump's decision. He decided to go in and take out Iran. That was his choice. Was the move accelerated by Israel? Absolutely. But I can guarantee you this, that if President Trump said, no, you cannot go in, they wouldn't have. So, We can say that we were dragged into the war by by Israel, but that would be inaccurate. Did they prompt it? Did they say, "Look"? You know, I'm sure that the way that they sold it, by the way, I'm certain, like not based upon intelligence because they haven't put this intelligence out there, but based upon just the knowing how they work, knowing how President Trump operates, they positioned it as, look, if you say this, we believe that the Ayatollah and his inner staff, they're going, including his son or whoever, IRGC leaders, they're all going to go and meet at this building. We can take them out in one fell swoop. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity if we act now. That's how I think that they sold it. And that's exactly what happened. On February 28th, that's exactly what happened. And from President Trump's rational thought, because he is a businessman at heart, he's been president for 6 out of the last 10 years, but he still has the heart of a peaceful businessman. And from his perspective, this is the offer that they can't refuse. And they'd be stupid to refuse it. And they'd be stupid to continue with the war and to not surrender. After day 1, they should have surrendered. After day 5, they definitely should have surrendered. After day 15, it's like, holy crap, they're still going? They're still trying to send boats out? The only flaw, again, and it's a huge flaw, but the only negative as far as the way that President Trump has handled this is that he did not understand how fanatical the Shia regime is in Iran. There's nobody like them. No one in the world is like Iranians' leadership. Iranian leadership is absolutely insane. Just nuts. Even the non-religious aspect of it. Okay? And this has nothing to do with the Iranian people. Okay? The Iranian people, from what I've obviously been more focused on it for the last several months, even before the war, you know, through their rebellion, their suffering, their protesting, I learned to appreciate that. Wow, these are freaking awesome people. These are really good people. Lots of Christians, more Christians. The one thing we can say about the Muslim regime is that they have prompted a conversion. They didn't mean to, but they prompted a mass conversion towards Christianity. The secular government of the Shahs prior to the revolution of 1979, that secular government, this was a nation of atheists. They weren't Muslim. They weren't Christian. I think there was like maybe 500 Christians in Iran in like 1978. Now there's like 1,000 converts a week. So that has been a huge benefit. That is a good thing. So I do feel for the people of Iran, but the Iranian regime, this Islamic regime, they're just insane. They're truly insane. Quick break. And this is not, I'm going to have to redo this one. This is my Substack promo. And it sure makes it sound, right off the bat, it sounds like it's me signing off. This is not me signing off. I still got like an hour to go or so. So stay tuned. Don't leave just because you hear this, but it is important. This Substack this is my lifeblood. This is how I do what I do every day. So listen. Thank you so much for watching the J.D. Rucker Show. You're greatly appreciated beyond belief. I can't even express how much gratitude I feel towards you. As you know, if you've been watching for a while, you know that we don't jam-pack a bunch of commercials into the show. We generally have, depending upon how long the show is, anywhere from 2 to 3 sponsors for an hour or two, right? Which isn't a lot. And yeah, we appreciate them. They help to pay the bills. But our primary form of revenue for the show and for everything that we do is through my Substack, jdrucker.substack.com. It is free. And currently we're not even offering anything for the paid subscribers. But if you do appreciate what we do, then that is the best way, becoming a paid subscriber on my Substack at jdrucker.substack.com. That is the best way to support the show, support everything that we're doing, all of the various websites that we do, the news aggregation. Yeah, I mean, we're fighting an uphill battle and keeping everything going, keeping this little show alive is it does cost money. So you can help out by becoming a paid subscriber at jdrucker.substack.com. If you just want to become a free subscriber, that's great too. Either way, I don't send out a bunch of newsletters, probably one or two, maybe three in a given week. But I'll only send it out when it's important. So please, if you appreciate what we do, that is the easiest way to support this show and everything else. So jdrucker.substack.com. I waited too long to get my sip of coffee in there. Let's see what's happening in the chat real quick. Interesting stuff. Eric the Gray, yes, absolutely. Persian culture is truly amazing. It is. And what we're seeing, this forced Islamicist culture, that's not what Iran is about. It is technically what they're about now, but it shouldn't be. There are stories that I avoid covering, again, not because I think that they don't need a bullhorn, but because I may not be the right guy to cover it, especially if they pertain to the predators out there. And that's why I didn't initially cover the rape gang story in the UK. I talked about it briefly, but I felt that it would be covered by so many people that there was no need for me to chime in. And boy, was I wrong. I cannot believe how few people are covering it. Legacy media? You would think they would eat this up. At least I did. And in retrospect, that was stupid. Oh, big, huge mistake on my part. Look, I think I'm right the vast majority of the time. When I'm wrong, I will say that I'm wrong. Nobody puts baby in the corner. So yeah, it is not being covered at all by legacy media, ignoring it completely. And conservative media, very disappointed in their response so far. But there have been influencers that are covering it, lots of them. That's been really, so the word is getting out. That's good. And a lot of these influencers are here in the United States. Yeah, I had actually responded to a post by Tommy Robinson. I said, look, nothing's going to change just because you've got a really strong activist in Tommy Robinson and a really strong politician in Rupert Lowe and, a bunch of people cheering them on. You're going to need the people, the British people, to rise up. However that manifests. I'm not over there, so I don't know how to make that happen or what it would look like. They don't have guns. Idiots. It's the dumbest thing. They're not armed, so I don't know what they need to do, but they need to do something because the government hates them, absolutely hates them. This government, the British government, is absolutely positively captured. 100% captured by the Red Green Alliance, the globalist elite cabal, the powers and principalities. They have taken over the British government and governments of most nations in Europe, taken them over so that they can allow as much mass migration as possible. Replacement theory is real, and we're seeing it happening in Europe, especially in Great Britain, which, again, that just should not be at all. So for background, I'm going to turn to TikToker. I think she's on YouTube. Good stuff. Brittany Hughes. She really lays it out very nicely.
So the UK's Independent Rape Gang Inquiry has released their 219-page report on the so-called grooming gangs that have been sexually exploiting girls throughout the UK for more than 70 years. And what they found is worse than the Epstein files, which is probably why you're not going to hear a whole lot about it from the media. In fact, not one single story yet on any of the major news networks, the New York Times, the Washington Post, or the Wall Street Journal. They're too busy water testing the reflecting pool like it's a CSI episode. So here's what investigators found. Buckle up. They estimate at least 250,000 girls across the UK, predominantly white, have been sexually assaulted by so-called grooming gangs since the 1950s. As much as 95% of the abusers were Pakistani men, and the first-hand accounts are almost too vile to describe. Women, including young girls, have been drugged, trafficked, gang raped, tortured, and passed around like community garbage bags by Muslim men who were led into the United Kingdom and their descendants. Multiple women have described being assaulted by large groups of men as part of Islamic religious rituals. The report also describes widespread efforts by British authorities and town councils to downplay, ignore, or outright cover up these crimes for fear of being called racist and Islamophobic. Authorities, including social services, consistently failed to report the race of the perpetrators or the religious motivation behind the crimes. Investigators said that in 13,000 cases, Keir Starmer, who's now the British Prime Minister, but who was formerly the Director of Public Prosecutions, reportedly dropped charges against men found to be sex trafficking girls and let them off with a warning note. Almost all of them were Pakistani Muslims. Many victims who tried to get help said they were handed birth control instead. In fact, multiple women said they were sent back to their abusers after local health and social services declined to help. One girl was found to have multiple internal injuries and STDs in her throat and genitals. She was handed back to her Muslim abuser anyway. This is real. It's about 1 billion times bigger than the Epstein files. It is the true story of how a Western nation let demons through its gates and then turned a blind eye while their own women were passed around like a bong because they didn't want to be called racist. It's the story of how mass, unfettered migration ruins civilized nations. And it's the story of how Islam is a violent and perverse ideology that is built on the degradation of women and children. It treats its own women like breeding cattle and non-Muslim women like cheap toys who were put here by Allah to be violated. All cultures are not equal, and this one sucks, and it should be sent back to the hellhole from which it came. And everybody who is complicit in this garbage should be rotting in prison.
And Lord willing, worse than that, I don't want them to just rot in prison. I want them... No, see, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get myself kicked off. I will get myself kicked off of Apple Podcast or wherever. And so I'm not going to say what I imagine everybody is thinking when they hear this story. And for many of you, this might be the first time you're hearing the story. The report came out 2 days ago. Okay? This report has been out. 250,000 people. This report has been read out loud before the British Parliament. This report, which takes approximately 6 or 7 hours to read, is so depraved. It's the type of stuff that will just tear out any semblance of faith in humanity. This is a reckoning, because the evils that are described in this report are so hideous that it will cut to your core. I don't recommend to anybody who is squeamish at all, I mean, even just a little bit, if you can't take Tabasco sauce, you're not going to be able to take this. It's awful. I mean, I'm not going to describe it, because I will get very angry. Now, here's the thing, and this is an extremely important takeaway that I hope everybody is paying attention. You have to understand this, because we need to know the core source of the problem. I hear it a lot. We heard it just now. They say that the reason for this, the reason that it was allowed, is because people don't want to be called bigots. You hear that a lot. They would rather just ignore the problem than risk being called bigots. Now, that's true for the lower level people. That's true for the cops. That's true for the nurses. Okay? But don't think that that's the case for the leaders, the politicians, the administrators in these hospitals, the administrators in these police stations. The quote-unquote leaders in England, in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, in most of Europe, have been fully and completely captured. This is not them scared or defending against Islamophobia. This is them actively and aggressively engaging in a complete and total takeover. This is the Red-Green Alliance manifesting in the most hideous, disgusting form you could possibly imagine. I'm starting to spit. I'm literally, my mouth is, when I want to beat the crap out of people, such as the Pakistani rape gang members, like physically, I have to calm myself down. And I do. I want to destroy them. I have a true, full-blown hatred for them. But on this show, let's talk about the reality. This is not about, oh, Keir Starmer doesn't want to be called a bigot. No, it's about Keir Starmer is engaged in allowing his nation to be taken over. And it's not just in the short term. It's not just the migrant boats. It's not just the, we gotta be careful and house these military aged men, these animals. It's not just about that. What were the rape gangs about? Was it just about sick guys getting their jollies? No. This is about generational invasion. This was about impregnating British girls with Muslim babies. Sorry, not sorry. That's the truth. And they knew it. The Keir Starmers of the world knew it. This is their plan. You have to understand that. This isn't about wokeness, folks. This is about conquest. They are captured. I don't know how they're captured. Okay, I don't know if there's a lot of different possibilities. I'm going to put at the very top option that they are truly legitimately demonic. That the Keir Starmers of the world, the Emmanuel Macrons of the world, that they are like full-blown minions of Satan. Seriously. I'm not trying to be funny here or hyperbolic. I believe that. That's the most likely scenario. I don't have proof. I'm not going to go Candace Owens and say, oh my gosh, I've got video saying that, showing that here's Keir Starmer at a satanic ritual. I don't have anything like that. And this is just, in a way, it's almost a defense mechanism for me to say that. Because otherwise, I have to accept and acknowledge that these quote-unquote leaders are just pure evil. Outside of, pure evil from a human perspective, to the point of they have lived their entirety of their lives, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of them have lived the entirety of their lives with the intention of destroying their own culture, destroying their own nation, and permanently harming as many innocent people as possible, especially little girls. That's one of the alternatives here. Is that either they got cut a deal with Satan, okay? They're demonically influenced. And now this is what they got to do. They got to pass these laws and call people bigots, and they got to gaslight their entire nation so that they can achieve whatever they've been promised. I know that's going to get some people to be like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds crazy." Yeah. It is crazy. And it sucks that I might be right. Because that means that the evil that most of us know is in the world is far more pervasive, far more ubiquitous than any of us knew. That's a scary thought. Other possible options is just, hey, they've been captured through standard conspiracy theory means. Okay, they've been blackmailed, bullied, Epsteined, so to speak, maybe bribed, maybe promised, hey, if you guys do this, you turn your back on this, then we will make sure that you stay in power for an extended period of time. And I know a lot of you, maybe most of you, will be like, hey, that's probably the more likely scenario. I think it's second. I'm sticking with demonic, because maybe defense mechanism, but For most of you, you probably think, yeah, that's the most likely scenario, is that they were promised something, they were bullied, blackmailed, bribed, combination of the three. Maybe, Keir Starmer, it's like, hey, you turn your back on this and, you let these guys out and we'll make sure that you're prime minister, within a decade. And maybe they tape recorded that and Keir Starmer's like, yeah, okay, I'll let that happen. How many is it going to be? And maybe he thought it was going to be 50 girls. And now a decade later, he's sitting there thinking, holy crap, 250,000. Geez, had I known that, I wouldn't have done it. But I can't back out now. I can't stop it. They got garbage on me. They got dirt. They can prove that I'm complicit in all this. So I got to keep going. I mean, people will do the most hideous things to other people to defend themselves, to protect their own best interests. And if Keir Starmer's given the option of, hey, you need to not only keep going, but you got to double, triple, quadruple down. You got to make sure to protect us no matter what. You got to stick your neck out on the line. Get labor to hate you, get the world to hate you. Because if we go down, we're taking you down. And you think it's bad to lose your status as prime minister? Imagine how bad it's going to be when you're stuck in prison for life, known as the guy that allowed 250,000 girls to be raped. You think you'll do well in prison? Here? Now take that and multiply that by 1,000 and 10,000 and however many people it took to allow this to happen. Calm down. During the next break, I'm going to pray my way through this because blood pressure reasons. I Am Sam says Jesus can't come soon enough. I'm ashamed of what we've allowed this world to become. If God did what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah, we all deserve far, far worse as nations. I'm not talking about you personally deserve. Maybe you're not out there doing these hideous things. But our races, our nations, our people, our cultures, our societies, they have. They continue to. Our prayer should be, please, Lord, don't judge us yet. Because that judgment would be awful. Matt Walsh, who is out there, he really highlighted something extraordinarily important. Highlighted the hypocrisy that we're seeing right now, today, in much of conservative media. And he's right.
On Tuesday, a member of parliament in the UK named Rupert Lowe released a 219-page report documenting the government's complicity in the systematic rape of an estimated 250,000 young white girls in Britain over the past several decades. I mean, this is the worst sexual abuse scandal the Western world has seen in modern times, and it's not particularly close. And yet you'll find that the same media and the same politicians and the same commentators, some even on the right, who have obsessed over Epstein, for example, will say nothing at all about this. Now, Epstein, of course, was a monster. I've always advocated for full transparency with the Epstein files. I still do. But the scale of this rape gang scandal, the nature of the crimes, the number of victims, the powerful institutions directly and explicitly implicated, all of that dwarfs Epstein by several orders of magnitude. So when the people who claim to want justice for Epstein's victims ignore the hundreds of thousands of victims in this case, you should pay attention to that and never trust those people again.
I have been calling for not necessarily justice. I want to take down the network that allowed Jeffrey Epstein to be who he was. The network that used him to do, and we're talking about a deep state network. I've been in favor of exposing Epstein, exposing the people, engaged in it. And it's not just about his victims. It's about stopping the next Epstein, which, again, that hasn't happened. The mechanisms that helped to build up and create Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein Island and Zorro Ranch, those mechanisms still exist. And there is another 1 or 2 or 10 or however many Jeffrey Epsteins out there right now doing the same thing that he was doing, just different people. So yeah, I am in favor of more exposure for the whole Epstein saga. But I'm not going to let that even compare to what we're seeing in England. As Walsh said, degrees of magnitude. The monsters that were behind Jeffrey Epstein, and of course Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell herself, and any of their lieutenants, they all deserve tremendous punishment, as do, of course, the perpetrators that were engaged in what was happening. But keep in mind, one thing that he didn't note is that the type of evil that was perpetrated was very, 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 very different. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm not trying to downplay Jeffrey Epstein's victims. But if you read the UK report, it's not on the same level. It's not the same degree of evil. And this is what we know about one little island nation. And we didn't know about it for over a decade. Oh, there were reports. There were investigations. There have been investigations since, 2013, 2014? There have been some media outcries. There have been victims that have come forward. But it took over a decade to fully expose, and we don't even know if this is fully exposed, but to get this degree of exposure, it took over a decade. And that's for one little island nation. Are these gangs operating, these types of gangs, are they operating in other Western nations, in Eastern nations? Are they operating here in the United States? You might say, oh, no. In the United States, we would totally know about that. We would. No, we would. We couldn't let that happen. It would never. No, we would know. Let me ask you this, if you think that way. Where are the 300,000 still missing illegal alien children, unaccompanied minors, as they called them, that came across thanks to Javier Becerra and Joe Biden and Otto Penn and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama? Where are they? It's a good question. I mean, they kept it hidden in this little itty-bitty island nation, multiple islands. In the UK, kept it hidden for a long time. United States, huge, land-wise. Open, wide open. We have pockets of Islamists growing, not just in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Dearborn, Michigan, down in Texas. Smaller versions are popping up everywhere, popping up in New Jersey, in Ohio, in Nevada. Those are the ones we know about. Would we even know about if there's 50 of those, 100, 1,000? Because we too have had our leaders captured. Maybe not to the degree of Keir Starmer. I pray to God that we haven't had that level of capture. But who's to say that we don't have variations of this here in the United States or in Canada or Mexico or South America or Africa or Asia or anywhere in the world? 250,000 girls in the little United Kingdom. And we can't find 300,000. That's just the illegal aliens, the unaccompanied minors. What about American citizen children? Oh, we would totally know about that. Really? Like I said, sometimes I do get embarrassed and ashamed to be a human in today's day and age. But with that said, I also get extremely encouraged, and I feel like it is a tremendous blessing to be alive today for many, many, many reasons. And one of the most important reasons is that, yes, there is evil. And yes, it can be exposed. It can be exposed more today than it ever has been. Is this new? No. There have been sex slave gangs for the entirety of human history. It's not a new phenomenon. It's just they have to change their methods based upon societies, technologies, governments, population densities, travel, weather, everything. So we do have, praise God for this, we have the opportunity to try to expose this stuff, to condemn it, to pray for the victims, to be cognizant of the possibilities, to be aware of our surroundings, to notice if a little girl looks distressed, to question whether or not that person with that kid match, to wonder why that dude is going into that girl's room, to just be aware and to be brave enough to say something if we see something. And then not to worry about whether or not we're going to be called a bigot. There's a reason why in the UK and in other places, a growing number of places across Europe and across the world, why they're being so jail time if you condemn Islam, jail time if you condemn the if you say anything bad about the pedophile, rapist, torturer of young children, well, you're going to jail. We don't have that here in the United States yet. But the Red Green Alliance, that's what they want. That's what allows it. Why do you think cops turn their back in the UK? It is. You know, when I say that the leaders, they're not worried about whether or not they're called bigots. They're just given their marching orders and they do what they do. Well, the cops, they are woke in the UK. Cops in the UK are like teachers in America. For years, decades, it's been built this way. They are scared of being called bigots. They are willing to turn a blind eye to the most heinous crimes imaginable, perpetrated against the most innocent young people that they have around them, the people they're supposed to protect. They will turn a blind eye because they don't want to be called Islamophobic. They're scared. They're terrified of that. And unfortunately, self-preservation supersedes being a decent human being for far too many people. We need to be decent human beings. That's us. That's you. That's me. We can't be good. The Bible says that there are no good people, and that's understandable. I am ashamed of just thoughts that I have throughout the day. I'm going to, like I said, I'm serious. I'm going to have to pray through this just because of the thoughts that I had of what I wanted to do to these rapists. Is it justified? Maybe. Is it good? Gosh, no. Trust me. Things going through my head. But it is a blessing to be alive now. I can get on here and talk to you about it. You can get out there and share. Get out there and talk to people. And again, just being aware, just working locally. Even if the best thing we can do to protect our community is to focus on our community. It's not about, we got to make sure that Republicans retain control of Congress. That's important, but that's not nearly as important as making sure that your community, the people closest to you, closest to your family, that they're aware, that they're awake, that they're not part of the problem, part of any problem. People are going to, I mean, again, we're not looking for perfection here. But I think it's a reasonable expectation that, members of a Pakistani rape gang shouldn't be living next door to you. And if they are, then you need to be watching, documenting. Does that mean, oh my gosh, he's getting paranoid and talking about turning in American people? If they're doing what they were doing back in the UK, yeah, turn them in. Are you going to get called Islamophobic? Especially if you're wrong? Yeah. But at least for now, we don't have jail time for being wrong or being right. But that could change very soon. We have so much to do. Pray for this nation. Pray for America. Pray for the world. Pray that God doesn't judge us immediately, because we won't. Talk about Book of Revelation, fire and brimstone. It's coming, folks. And I know a lot of us out there, I've felt this way myself. I mean, we're excited about it. Could it happen today, tomorrow? Oh, that'd be great. Okay, sooner the better, right? But it's not on our timeline. We're on God's timeline. So our role, we might hope for this, pray for that. Daniel prayed. He prayed for forgiveness for Israel. We should pray for not just forgiveness, but redemption, for revival, for spiritual revolution here in the United States of America. Spread the word. These are things that we can and should do. So just because we are surrounded by evil doesn't mean that we must be engulfed by it. We can still fight back for now. And that may change someday. After the break, we'll get to some good news. Let's get to some good news. We got some good news. Got some cracking down of some fraud, lots of fraud, 3 different fronts happening. You know what? As a matter of fact, we're gonna open up with the best piece of news. This will be great. The best piece of news that I could get following that awful segment about the rape gangs. Chris Hansen is back. Google the name if you need to. You should know who he is, and I'm excited to talk more about him after the break. My good friends at America First Healthcare offer something that a lot of Americans need desperately right now, and that is cheaper health insurance. Not just health insurance, they offer a wide array of insurance products. They are, as their name implies, an America First company, which means that they are not beholden to Obamacare. They're not beholden to any outside forces that often plague our insurance industries here in the United States. They're an American company. They believe in America First values. And if you believe in America First values, you should at the very least check them out. I mean, what's the worst case scenario if you get some quotes and see what they can do for you? Go to patriot.tv/health, patriot.tv/health, and find out if they have a good product that matches your needs. Thumbs up, folks. Thumbs up. I just checked the thumbs up. They're down. Thumbs up or down. Quick, emergency. Does anybody else watch, I think his name's Steve. I forgot his, Lookner. He's got a YouTube channel, and he does like these 12-hour live casts. Anytime anything's going on, sometimes longer than 12 hours. Anytime anything's going on, he's out there and he's covering it. You know, the dude's crazy. He's a leftist, but he tries to be, at least he pretends to be unbiased. Absolutely positively hates Elon Musk. You can tell he's not a fan of President Trump. But it's still kind of entertaining to watch, okay? Because he gets so spastic. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, breaking. I want to imitate him sometimes. Breaking news, guys. Hey guys, breaking news. We got Iran's supreme leader speaks out on the U.S. deal after months of silence. Iran's supreme leader speaking out. I love him. Yeah, again, I don't like his ideology. I don't like his coverage half the time, and he's super annoying most of the time. But I still watch. And he gets lots of thumbs up. So if he can get lots of thumbs up, by golly, please help me get some thumbs up. Let's get it over. Let's get it over 1 million. Okay, so maybe that's unrealistic, but let's get it more than what we have now. How's that? Thumbs up, rumbles, as they're called, not thumbs up, rumbles on Rumble. I need them. I need as many as I can get. So, and I'm sorry, I'm stalling because I'm looking for the Chris Hansen. There it is. Found it. When we look around and we see all the evil in the world, especially as it pertains to evil against children, it's good to know that there are people out there who are trying to catch these predators. I often talk about how Nick Shirley is the prototype for citizen journalism that can have an impact on the real world, and that's what he's done. Okay, Minnesota fraud is getting exposed left and right. He traveled to California. He was followed up by the government. If it wasn't for Nick Shirley, there would be no J.D. Vance task force. I mean, think about that. The Vice President of the United States has a fraud task force based on one guy, one kid, going around knocking on doors and asking questions on his iPhone. We need more of that. But if we can't get more of that, I definitely want more Chris Hansen. Because for those who didn't know, I am extraordinarily I view, this is going to sound bad, but I view murderers in a brighter light than child predators. Child predators, to me, are the worst of the worst. Because to take a life, that's awful. I don't want to downplay that. That's, to rip somebody's life apart, literally, to kill somebody, that's so bad. But these child predators, they change a life in a way that is irreversible. So a murderer might kill somebody, and that person might be going from alive to dead, and maybe they knew it, maybe they didn't know it, but they're dead. They're not suffering anymore. Whereas these child predators, the pain that they cause can not only stay with their victim for decades, but can then oftentimes turn into further hurt, further pain. It can be spread to people that are around their victim. It's the most hideous crime to me, which is why I love it when we get Chris Hansen out there, and I think that we should have 1,000 more Chris Hansens. I think that every city should have 15 of them, 20 of them, 100 of them. Pay him. If I was a multi-billionaire, this is what I would do. Okay, this is one of the things I would definitely do. I would start a ministry, spread the word of God. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I would get Chris Hansen, give him a whole bunch of money to then go out and recruit a bunch more of him, and let's just sick him out there. Okay, let's clean up America. Let's make pedophiles fear us, Chris Hansen style.
Speaking of predators, have a seat. Chris Hansen's back on the hunt. This time he was doing a sting in Maryland, and he caught himself a creep.
Walk backwards. Walk backwards. Walk backwards. Stop.
Dennis is taken into custody. He does not resist.
Dennis was allegedly trying to meet up with a 15-year-old boy. Instead, he met Chris Hansen and confessed he was a teacher.
Specifically, what do you do in education?
I oversee gifted learning.
Gifted learning.
Yeah.
And where do you oversee gifted learning?
In Baltimore City.
And you were a teacher before that?
Yes.
And what are the ages of the children
I was a high school teacher.
you deal with?
Well, nowadays I deal mostly with, pre-K, K, first grade stuff.
Dennis got Teacher of the Year back in 2005 and taught advanced placement classes. Chris Hansen did his homework and brought the text messages.
You tell him that you want him to have you worship, eat, and these are your words.
Yes. I understand. I'm not refuting the words that I responded back to his direction and guidance.
You say, quote, make me your, call me names, and then be intimate for a long session and lots of. afterwards. Make me and anything else you desire. This isn't gray area stuff, Dennis.
Dennis hasn't been charged yet, but he's currently behind bars without bail. It's not just Maryland. Chris Hansen teamed up with law enforcement in Florida. In just 6 days, they rounded up more than 50 alleged predators. But the press doesn't want to talk about it.
So you just pissed me off. Now, I'll let him decide if he's going to answer your question, but all this you want to ask him about some other case, we're talking about children. Now, if you're getting that from one of your people that typically is behind the phones that y'all have, wants you to ask that question, tell them to have the gonads to come here and ask me that question. This press conference is solely for those pieces of that are right there.
I forgot that sheriff's name. I forgot that was in there. We need more of him too, by the way. And I've said this many times. The most important person that you ever vote for is going to be your county sheriff, period. More important than voting for president, congressman, governor, mayor, dog catcher, doesn't matter. And the second most important, by the way, is your district attorney. These are the people that either can keep you safe or not. These are the people who can either go after the predators that you report or go after you for reporting them. So important. You know your sheriff. Support your sheriff. If they're good, if they're a Soros-backed sheriff, a Soros-backed DA, then don't support them. Oppose them, and you should probably consider moving. If you're living in a county or a city that's going to give you a Soros-backed district attorney and or sheriff, it's probably going to be not a good place to live. So yes, we need more Chris Hansens. If I was a billionaire, that's what I would pay for. I would pay to get me a whole bunch of them. But it does also serve as a reminder that this isn't just about busting the pedophiles. This is about parenting. We have to be cognizant. We have to be fully aware. And if that makes you a mean parent for being aware, for monitoring what your kids are doing, especially if they're on like Discord chats, my kids, they get so annoyed. They've been annoyed with me for decades. And praise God that I've never had to deal with that guy. People like him. I'd probably be in jail if I had to deal with people like that. I wouldn't be the right person to be like Chris Hansen, because he could sit there and recite those texts to that guy. And did you notice? I know that if you're listening on audio, you probably didn't, obviously you didn't see it, but let me describe the scene to you. They're at a picnic table. This teacher, ex-teacher, who was trying to meet up with a 15-year-old boy for hideous things that, thankfully, they bleeped out the things that he wanted to do. But he was sitting there. He's in handcuffs, hands behind his back. And, I mean, he might as well be getting interviewed for winning the local bake-off. Okay? It's just like, yeah, I was a teacher. I was a gifted program, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, I said that. I was just trying to do what I thought, was what he wanted. This is, by the way, notice that the language that he was using is very similar to the language that they use when they promote child transgenderism. Very similar. Look, we've got to be aware of their needs, aware of who they are and what their interests are. I mean, you could say he was saying the exact same thing that the people that are defending child genital mutilation, the same thing that they're saying. Two sides of the same coin. It always has to do with the inappropriate, disgusting sexualization of children. Every time. Whether it's about transing them or meeting them in a park. I could not sit there and read what Chris Hansen was reading in front of the guy that sent those to what he believed was a young boy. Couldn't do it. That's not for me. But I would pay other people to do it. People that maybe wouldn't have such violent tendencies towards sickos like that guy that was sitting there in his glasses and his bald head, a former teacher. He was teacher of the year. Get your kids out of public schools if you can, folks. Today is a rant day. That's what it is. I'm in rant mode. Not intentionally either. It's just following the news. But yeah, people like that make me want to rant. Let's get to some other good news. I love me some Chris Hansen. Love me some let's get some justice going. But on a separate note, completely changing topics here because I skipped on this one earlier and I want to get back to it. Pete Hegseth meeting with NATO and laying out what he calls NATO 3.0, the new version of NATO. One where the U.S. is still involved and still engaged, just financially far, far less. And where Europe is actually starting to, figure out how to defend themselves. Seems like a good idea, right?
At the same time, going forward, our annual NATO dues will be contingent on other countries meeting their defense spending targets. Where other allies do not spend with urgency, our dues contributions will go down. NATO will be a two-way street. It's only common sense. America cannot care for or pay more for Europe's defense than our allies do. And this review will think outside the box. Our national defense strategy states clearly that we're going to incentivize and enable our allies to step up and do their part. So we're going to keep a close eye on allies who are not doing that and who say no or maybe or wait and see when it matters most. It's a review that some countries will fail and others will pass with flying colors. In the end, the review is intended to both improve U.S. force posture and basing and strengthen NATO 3.0. It's intended to be constructive, as we have always been. There are no strategic surprises here. There haven't been. I've been clear with all of you since my first remarks to this body in February of 2025. President Trump has always done the same. Our direction of travel is and has been clear. This is the right thing to do by the American people. It's the right thing to do by this alliance. Europe can and must take primary responsibility for its conventional defense as it pledged at the Hague summit.
And just to be clear, I know that a lot of NATO members have expressed their concerns with this new U.S. policy. A lot of them can't wait for the next Democrat to come in there and say, okay, here's a blank check. But this is for their benefit, okay? I mean, Europe, NATO should be, we should be a tiny part of it. If anything, we should be supplying them with the technology. They should be buying a bunch of arms from us, not the other way around. We shouldn't be paying for their defense. We should be supplying the weapons for their defense. They should be buying more weapons from us. We shouldn't. I mean, our role should be as a supplier, not as a direct contributor to NATO. I mean, I totally understand. Prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall, prior to the fall of the Soviet Union, it was in our best interest to make sure that we had a wall of defense, a way that we could reach our enemies before they could reach us. Then our enemies at that point being Moscow. But this is a different world. Moscow, Russia, is the chances of them invading or trying to nuke the United States are about as slim as the chance of Chris Hansen. No, I'm not going to make any crossover jokes. Failed at that one. Did you get the idea? I'm starting to drool again. So, yeah, we don't have to be concerned about the Soviet Union because they don't exist. It behooves NATO, Europe in general, to be able to defend against Russia because that is far more likely. Is it very likely? No, I don't think so. But it's not likely because of NATO. I'm not saying that if NATO didn't exist that Russia would just sweep through Europe or any other country would just sweep through Europe, but it sure is nice to be able to defend yourself. And so, what Pete Hegseth was saying there, what our current stance is with NATO, pulling back on the funding, asking them to fund more, monitoring them, making sure that they can take care of themselves. Yes, that is a righteous maneuver. And Germany, by the way, is already trying to lead the way in that regard. They are trying to build up their military. Now, it's funny. I actually watch, I forgot the name of it. I think it's called Worlds of Tomorrow. There's a YouTube channel that I watch, and they are, their eschatology points squarely at Germany as being like the Antichrist nation. They believe that Germany is going to be the core of the end times. Now, I disagree, but it is interesting because now their channel is blowing up with like, look at what's happening in Germany. Germany is getting ready to become a full-blown superpower. They are putting more money and more effort into building up their quote-unquote defense than anybody else in Europe, by far, not even close. To their own detriment in some cases, but to the detriment of their own economy. What's going on there? Again, I don't agree with that. They have a lot of good eschatology over at that channel, Worlds of Tomorrow. They also have a lot of bad eschatology. I would consider I don't think that Germany is going to be the core nation of the end times, the Antichrist nation, but you never know. You never know. It's possible. Nah, who knows? Point being is that, yeah, Germany's already stepping up. Where's the rest of NATO? They should. They must. And again, I've got no problem with us supplying them weapons. They buy them, open market kind of stuff. We turn a good profit as a result. Great. Awesome. Use our awesome technology. Not the best of our technology, by the way. Just, always a tier below us. We always want to maintain the best supplies for ourselves. But if they want to buy it, awesome. I just don't want to fund NATO anymore. I just don't see a point. I don't want my taxpayer dollars to go to defending them. They hate us. Why would we do that anyway? It doesn't make any sense. Blah, blah, blah. All right, let's talk about fraud. I'm going to make it. Okay, we're going to have an actual, proper, complete show today. Let's talk about fraud. So I had actually posted a story yesterday. Let me pull this up. Over at jdrucker.com, Gavin Newsom's $30 million fortune faces DOJ scrutiny. You'll have to scroll down to find it or just use the search box, but I encourage you to read it because it does break down that there are probably 70 or 80 different layers of corruption within the Newsom family. I had no idea. I always knew they were corrupt, but I had no idea that their riches were corrupt. I know they've got connections, obviously, to Nancy Pelosi and the Gettys, and there's rumors of him being involved with Beelzebub and Satan and all that stuff. Yeah, that's probably true, but but his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, my gosh, they're not even trying. I mean, it's almost to the point where I think she might be like a sacrificial lamb. It's like, hey, Gavin's gonna run for president, so before he runs for president, let's try to push all of his corruption onto her and position her as the evil mastermind that manipulated poor victim Gavin. You might say, well, that wouldn't play, and you forget he's a Democrat. That'll play great, okay? Especially if he were to come out as gay. Gay Gavin, he was cornered into this relationship before realizing and coming out and realizing that he's gay, but poor evil Jennifer Siebel Newsom was there taking advantage of it, and all the corruption, all of the money and crony capitalism and all that's tied to her, and Gavin's free and clean and gay, and he can run for president in 2028. I'm sure it's unlikely. Okay, this is not I'm throwing that out there as a possible scenario, and obviously it's almost certainly not possible. I just needed a laugh. Let's look at Jennifer Siebel Newsom, though.
What made you look into Newsom's wife in the first place, and what did you find?
Well, there are just always a lot of questions that seem to be swirling around the Newsoms and their finances, have been for years. And so I thought, this is a man who clearly is going to be running for president. This is worth looking at, what their finances are, what the shape of them are. And so when I had a look at Jennifer Newsom's charity, I found that she was paying herself since 2012 $3.7 million. This is a lot of money when you look at the amount that the charity brings in. It's sort of 1 to 1.7 million a year. And she's paying up to a third of that to herself and her own company, $300,000 a year. Now, that is, I did a bit of data analysis looking at what charities that size usually pay their executives, and she was in the top 5% of all charities in the nation for pay.
So DOJ, of course, doesn't comment on the specifics of this. We've really only heard from Gavin Newsom claiming this investigation is targeting them, even though, as we mentioned, it started in 2022 in his orbit. Do you think that the charity is the reason DOJ might be investigating her?
There's a whole bunch of reasons, potentially. There are a lot of questions around their finances. So the charity could be one of them. Now, it is legal for a charity to pay whatever they want to their executives. But one of the issues they might be looking at is who are the donors to the charity that are financing that pay? What kind of relationships do they have with the California government that Newsom is in charge of? There's also, if you look at his income, and he's released at least, partly to journalists in closed-door viewing sessions, his tax returns. And if you look at that, his income, it's about 1.2 to 1.4 million a year. And it just doesn't add up for all of his expenses. He's got massive mortgages, $625,000 in mortgage payments. He's got at least $1 million in living expenses. And the two just don't add up. I would be interested in that if I were an IRS investigator. One other thing to look at here is the way that his property transactions are structured lead to a lot of questions. When he bought his $3.7 million Sacramento estate, it was done through an LLC, but that LLC doesn't seem to have appeared on his tax returns. There's all kind of questions of why he would do it that way, and he hasn't answered those satisfactorily. Yeah. So if I'm IRS, I'm looking at that too, thinking maybe there's an issue here. We've yet to see what the actual details are, of course.
I don't usually comment on somebody's appearance. But Jennifer Siebel Newsom, if I didn't know who she was, if I saw her at a Costco pushing a cart, I would look at her, and the first thing I think is, that is a Karen's Karen. That is the most Karen-y Karen that's ever Karened. I mean, she exudes woke white girl Karenness. It's crazy, and it matches, like her personality actually matches her look, or maybe her look matches her personality. Which is weird because about me, what do I look like? Who cares? Fraud is not exclusive to the West Coast. I know that out here in California, we think that we got the market cornered. We got all the fraud. Okay, we're good at it. At least that's what the Democrats, politicians, and bureaucrats, community leaders, journalists, if you call them that, that's what they think. But actually, it does happen everywhere else as well, including Massachusetts. This is illegal alien stuff here, by the way, so buckle up.
Alarmingly, 11 of the 15 charged defendants are suspected illegal aliens, some of whom assumed stolen identities to steal these taxpayer-funded benefits and avoid detection. American citizens were boxed out of these programs because illegal aliens took their names to then take their money.
That was the Justice Department just moments ago announcing 15 people are being charged with food stamp fraud in Massachusetts. The scams exploited food stamp, housing, and health care programs, costing taxpayers more than $1.4 million. 11 illegal immigrants, including some who have been living under stolen identities, are among those charged.
All right, here's the assignment to those. I'm glad that they're uncovering all this, okay? You got these district attorneys, U.S. attorneys out there doing good work. They're investigators, the police, uncovering all this, but tie it into the politicians and bureaucrats. Don't just, okay, great, you caught the scammers. Now, how is that possible? Who allowed for these illegal aliens, number one, to be here, number two, to scam millions of dollars from Americans? Who's behind those policies? That's how, if we start to expose that more and more and more and more, I'm telling you, that's the path to midterm victory for the Republican Party. Notice, it's Massachusetts. This isn't happening in Oklahoma City. Maybe it is, for all I know. I shouldn't say that. Watch. But if it is, expose that too. I want all fraud gone, not just Democrat fraud, all of it. We could balance the budget. We could start working on the debt. If we just got rid of the fraud and the corruption and the waste, we wouldn't need to cut good programs. We should still. Okay? I'm still a huge fan of limited government to the point of thinking that we should eliminate about 90 to 95% of all federal funding and push it all to the states and eliminate taxes and just work off tariff revenue. But whatever. It's a whole different story for a different day. But at the very least, even if we didn't do that, even if we just eliminated the waste, the fraud, and the abuse, we're hunky-dory. We're rich, okay? We could open up an In-N-Out burger in every city across America, government funded. Just kidding. Don't quote me on that one. But it's not just about the fraud for the money. Fraud is something that spreads well beyond just, oh, look at this illegal alien making money off food stamps. Oh, look at this rich Karen in California making money off her nonprofit. No, fraud actually extends well beyond just the financial gains. Fraud can be used as a weapon, and vice versa, exposing the fraud, suing for the fraud, using the legal system and the laws that are on the books, we can go after fraud in a way that actually exposes Democrats and leftists and everybody else for their policies and exposes them for the damage that they do to the American people. It's a perfect example of this quote unquote, it's not technically, about some Somali fraudster out there making millions off a daycare. It's not about that. But it is about a different type of fraud. And even this type of fraud, to me, would help us if we expose more of it before the election.
To transgender health care, it accuses the group of misleading parents on treatments for children. And Alexandria Hoff has this story. What happened, Alex?
Well, Dana, this is big, and it is fascinating because his lawsuit is coming from the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, which, as you know, typically focuses on fighting commercial fraud like false advertising and administrative scams. In this case, the FTC is classifying so-called youth gender care like a product that it claims is deceptively marketed to families by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH. Now, the FTC is joined on with attorneys general for Texas, Alaska, Iowa, and Nebraska in this suit. Kurt Masili is the chief medical officer with the group Do No Harm, and he weighs in on this.
PATH has really asserted itself, and unfortunately, as this preeminent authority, but they have made false and unsubstantiated claims regarding the medical necessity, the effectiveness, and the safety of pediatric medical transition. And so we're talking about puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries, and these procedures, when we look at the systematic reviews, there's no evidence of any benefit.
A systematic review was released in 2024. It was the UK's CAS review that was groundbreaking because it concluded there was no evidence that puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones improved a young person's mental well-being. WPATH is pushing back against the current lawsuit, stating the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is not a medical provider and has no place interfering with the process of individualized medical decision-making, and the FTC also does not have any jurisdiction over WPATH and its non-commercial speech. Now, last month, an FTC investigation into WPATH was blocked by a federal judge, making it so that the group didn't have to hand over its internal documents. This new lawsuit is a way around that, Dana.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. We appreciate your reporting.
Democrats are so much better at lawfare than Republicans, always have been. That needs to change. Find the fraud, win the election. Find more fraud, win more elections. Rinse, repeat. Pass the Save America Act. Balance the budget. We can have good things again. We can have nice things again here in the United States. We can take down our taxes, take down cost of living. So many good things that can come from this. And again, I'll repeat it for the 15th time. The key to it is exposing fraud. Tomorrow being Friday, tomorrow is Friday, right? I'm not saying that. Okay, yeah. Sometimes I forget. Tomorrow being Friday, we are going to be doing another round of Ask Me Anything. I will have stories. I'm not going to just do an entire 2 hours of Ask Me Anything, but get your questions ready. Anything at all. I'm sure we'll talk about beef bacon. Somebody asked me for the recipe for my wife's incredible marsala sauce, which I'm about to go have some. She takes it and she makes extra, and then she puts it in these containers and freezes it so that I can just take it, and it's good. It's good stuff. Great stuff. And if you're going low on carbs and you have different types of low carb pasta, a Marsala sauce can sort of make up for the crappiness of the low carb pasta. Good stuff there. But yeah, be ready. Ask me anything at all. I will be ready for y'all. And hopefully I won't be spitting or drooling. We'll try to have a toned down, less emotional, less JD out there thinking about beating up Pakistani rape gang people, because it's not a good thing to think about. Lord willing, I will be back tomorrow for another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.